Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I am Forest East. How are you? Thanks for joining us, and thank you for subscribing if you haven't already. It helps us all feel good and be part of one big family. Speaking of family, we have the East Forest Council over on Patreon, and we just did our monthly Zoom gathering. We do that once a month, but there's many other tiers that you could join in as little as $4 a month. And it's one great way to support this currently advertisement-free, except for these advertisements, podcast, and helps me keep this work sustainable. I also will be putting some content over there that's like extra podcast material, including part of this conversation. This is a Radha Krishna Roundtable with my partner Radha. The last part of this conversation will be an exclusive over for our council on Patreon. And I put like unreleased music over there. We do some live streams. We do the monthly Zoom council, among other things. So check it out, patreon.com/eastforest, or just go to eastforest.org, scroll down, and you'll see the information on the homepage there. But I always love getting in these conversations with Radha. It's just, in one way, it's like, it's easy and fun because, you know, we're partners and we know each other really well. But also it's like when you sit down with someone and you just really listen and you have it through the lens of a podcast conversation with a microphone. I don't know, it brings a special kind of attention and listening that perhaps you don't, you know, it's a heightened awareness in a sense. It's just sort of a different playing field for conversation. And I actually find that quite rewarding, not just with any guest I bring on, but it's like, oh, this is an added benefit for someone that I think I know really well. But it's like we get to play in this added other dimensional space of cast land. So I think you'll enjoy it. Check out her podcast, Love, Service, Wisdom. And she's also got some great meditations on Spotify and Apple, wherever you listen to music, called Guidance. It's just an album under her name, Marisa Radha Weppner. I did the music for them. And I also mixed and mastered it. So it sounds pretty good compared to your average meditation thing out there. And she's just got a wonderful voice and a wonderful energy and deep knowledge. So check out everything she's doing. Hey, if I'm going to keep plugging her, she's also a life coach. And just basically, you can hire her to help you and guide you and sit with you and help you prosper and dig deeper. And basically, she does that for me all the time. So I feel grateful for that, but she gets to share that with others as well. In the meantime, also thank you for giving this podcast a review on the old Apple Podcasts. It makes a big difference. 5 stars goes a long way. Thank you for doing that. Maybe perhaps while I'm talking, you go to the main show page and just scroll all the way down. And you can also leave a written review if that feels right to you. That's always nice. But we really love helping us get the ratings, mostly because it helps me get the kind of guests that you want to hear. What else is going on? Well, April 9th, I'm going to start releasing finally my new studio album. It's called Possible, and it's going to release over just like every couple weeks, a new track building up to the summer, just so we can kind of have a journey together with the music, and I think you're going to like it. I'm really proud of it. It's essentially my last studio record was the Ram Dass album, and this one, I did a lot of things that are new for me. One of them was I took some samples from the podcast right here, and I put them into song, into music. One, well, that's coming, so I'll just leave that as a surprise. You can see which guest it is. But the first song is the lead-off track, the title track, called Possible, and it has vocals and has lyrics and has a string section from the Boise Philharmonic and my piano and some bass and a video. I just can't wait to share it with you and get that journey rolling together. So that'll start on April 9th. And this weekend, March 27th, this is 2021, pretending when you're listening to this, Radha and I are heading to Costa Rica, as we mentioned, for a benefit concert for Justin Wren's Fight for the Forgotten. So I'm looking forward to going down. I'm honest, I'm a little nervous about it. I have not been on a plane in over a year, which is totally insane, which has been nice. And I just frankly feel out of practice of traveling. I mean, she and I we live in this little bubble of kind of the north end of Boise, Idaho, which is a really beautiful, it's a little like 100-year-old suburb, essentially just 5 minutes above downtown. And it's very quaint. It's very nice, very quiet, and not very corporate or anything like that. It's sort of urban suburban, as you would say, sort of like the neighborhoods of Portland. But we went, I don't leave the neighborhood much besides downtown and here. And we went out to outer Boise, as we might want to call it, to have to run some errands, which is essentially like most of America, strip malls and all this kind of stuff. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting, just the people around and the different energy and it just felt like a form of protectionism going, this armor going up of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I'm not really sure how to prepare for traveling out of this entire country on an airplane other than to just breathe and stay present and take my electrolytes and listen to some calming music. I think we can do it. So thanks for sending good blessings for that. I hope you all are springing into spring in this good God, what is the equinox? Equatoriality of this time as we cross the Rubicon of balance, which is sort of perfect for this conversation that we get into, and that's very much what we dive into. So I think you will enjoy it. Everything else that's going on as far as other tour dates and stuff, eastforest.org. And thanks again for listening. Thanks again for everyone who's joined the East Forest Council on Patreon and for supporting the podcast. Here we go, folks. The Radha Krishna Roundtable. So typically people start these things with a meditation or something, and I feel like for us...
They start what things? A podcast?
Yeah, I don't, but...
when you say typically most people, who are these people?
You know, how often do you find that when you do a podcast or you're a guest on a podcast that it starts with some kind of a meditation?
I have done it once when I invited Justin Michael Williams to do it with me and kind of drop in. But I think we did it before we started recording. But the idea of it is really beautiful because we're going to begin this conversation together. And when we start it, we don't have to do it with a meditation, but just like a moment of connecting to each other. We can connect to our own bodies. And I can feel myself, and then I feel you, and then we're in resonance together.
Well, I was just going to say for us, being partners, I didn't think we needed to get in resonance. I feel like if anything,
I think partners
you need
always
a break
need...
from the resonance.
No, I disagree. Partners need to always re-resonance. I mean, we do that. Well, you and I do that in many ways. And yes, we just connected. But,
yeah, so... I just thought it would be really good for us to get back into another roundtable discussion as we're hitting the equinox time of the year and things are changing, and thought it was a good chance to drop back in and see where things are at. So let's start with, what is the edge for you right now?
Drop it into a question. I would say the edge for me right now, and when you say edge, it's my growth edge. That's how I'm taking it. And my growth edge, I mean, you witness me all the time, and you know my life very intimately. And recently I've been struggling with, as I think many people have, as you said, it's the equinox and coming into spring, this energy of creation doing again. And though the desire is there and the impulse is there, I've also been feeling a little confused by it, or resistance, or like it's a no.
You don't want to do.
No, I do want to plan things, but it's been difficult to plan things. And so recognizing, when you do something and it's in flow, it just like comes together and it feels good and it's a yes. And then when you're doing something, when it's out of flow, it's like glitchy and pauses and you're unclear. When you're unclear, it's unclear. Right? And when you're clear, you're clear. So currently I've been unclear about future stuff. And so the edge has been to come back to presence and not project too far into the future. And the presencing right now feels very clear.
Well, that seems like a very springy thing to do also.
Which part?
Spring feels about sort of like clearing, right? We talk about spring clearing and and that kind of stuff, and more sunlight and the time changing. It is hard. It has been, of course, hard to plan. And I don't know. I mean, on one level, there's more things coming into the fold that of people trying to make plans and sort of coming out of they're dusting off what it feels like to do things in the world and plan. And I'm still pretty conflicted about it because I do miss that connection with people and audiences and that sort of thing. But I don't feel like I can do things the way I did completely. It just doesn't. Certainly right now I don't, because it's still, I haven't done it. I haven't hopped on a plane and done it. You know what I mean?
And I would say you don't want to do it like you did before. Is that true?
No. I mean, I also just, to be honest, it just feels kind of overwhelming. It's not just like, oh, what do I like? It just feels really anxiety ridden when I try on the idea of hopping on a plane and that kind of thing.
Well, I think that's similar to what I was saying too. Like the planning created anxiety. It felt like a no. So I think we're feeling both very similar things. There's a resistance and we're trying to like label it and put it into a pocket, but the underlying feeling is a resistance to jumping back on the wagon.
Yeah. But nonetheless, there's some jumping back on the wagon going on.
True.
And maybe that's where some of that conflictedness comes in.
Well, do you feel like the things you've said yes to feel good?
Yeah, but I still feel pretty nervous about it. I think it's like just feeling out of practice with that muscle, the confidence of physically putting yourself out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I just feel like for you have spent this whole past year really deepening in many, many ways. And remember when back in the summer or the fall when we got a massage from Monica? It was like the first massage she gave in a long time, and it was outdoors on the patio. And we were like, this massage is amazing. She hasn't given a massage in forever, and we're getting all the pent up, incredible energy.
yes.
I feel like, so for you, when you perform, these first few shows are probably also going to be awesome, because everything that's been marinating within you for this past year will stream through.
I guess, yeah, that's a beautiful proclamation to put out there, a seed to plant. And I feel that too, but my brain also goes to just, I don't know, it's like running a race, and you haven't run a race in a while, and you just feel like you need to like work your way up to it. And it's like, well, I can run a marathon again, but I need to start working my way up. And it's sort of just that recognition of taking that first step.
Well, fortunately, you're not about to run a marathon. It's not like a long tour ahead of you. It's
just some isolated days. I mean, really,
right.
At this moment in time, we're talking about April,
yes.
So 2021.
Yeah.
And after that, it's still more or less, largely a question mark. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. It sounds like you're in a similar place.
Yeah. And like I expressed to you this morning, this past year, I've been learning a lot and taking all kinds of courses of things that interest me from a variety of spectrums. And I see that just continuing. Like I'm in a learner phase, which isn't necessarily a teacher phase, though I will continue to teach. But it's like the spiral has turned inward a little bit.
Does that feel like beginner's mind, kind of? Like that notion that that's the place you want to always be in a sense.
I feel like it's kind of an ebb and flow. Yes, I would always want to be in beginner's mind, but I recognize in my own life I go through phases of personal deep learning and then sharing and then learning and sharing. So
really, it's like cycles like that?
Yeah, it's cycles. I would say it's definitely cycles personally. And the new work that I'm learning and the things that I'm doing, like with the kirtan and the harmonium and the chanting on one side, and then the trauma work and the somatic work and the ketamine work on the other side, feel so awesome to get deeper into. And I know it'll just inform all of my teachings so well when I finally bring it out to the marketplace, let's say. It feels like I'm up leveling in the things that I've been doing and giving and offering and teaching. And they're things that I've always wanted to explore in a deeper way. And it's just like the doors are swinging wide open now for me to do it.
A lot of it seems from the outside looking in that you've been doing a lot of interest in trauma work, healing trauma, that sort of realm. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, totally. And it pairs and partners so well with my 2 decades of teaching yoga, because yoga is a body practice, but also a practice of self-awareness, self-awakening, maturing. And then the newer piece for me with learning the trauma stuff, which has really only emerged, I would say, in maybe the last decade at most, 5 years maybe. I mean, my thesis when I was in graduate school was yoga, a somatic journey to oneness. And that was like 15 years ago. So it's always been something I've been really interested in. And now learning from who I am now, it feels like, and also having the way in which I work with clients through the coaching or the psychedelic therapies, it's like the missing piece to help people go a lot deeper.
And I'm ready. Therapy?
Well, and with the coaching. So having the tools with the trauma work, the somatic based trauma work, it just fits like a puzzle piece perfectly together. It feels so good.
In a lot of ways, it feels like it's putting a big tent around trauma work and trauma healing in general. It's sort of a loaded term, maybe because of what it represents, but it also feels...
What's loaded about it for you?
Well, trauma in itself is a triggering thing, typically.
Yes.
Right? And so it's sort of the deep end, feels like.
It's the deep end.
And it also feels like for pretty much everyone, on some level, there's trauma to heal.
We all have it. And there's we think of the big things like car accidents or, sexual abuse or something horrific. Or it's just like when you were a child living in a household that was full of anger, or you didn't get the love that you needed and that was withheld.
Or the world is what it is. And for myself, I had loving parents, but it's more just like I couldn't understand the pain of having to fit into this box of the world. And that, for me, there was a kind of trauma in that. I still feel that. And so...
Well, of course you do, because the thing is there's trauma that's the events, but then the trauma then takes place in the body, and it's the body's response to the one event or events or series of events. And it's what's been now held in the body as a reactive pattern. And that's often unconscious.
But this is a somatic viewpoint on it, right?
In my experience of the study I've done, all trauma points to the body. So it's not, there's one avenue or a branch of trauma that's body. It's actually all body. Everything is about the body.
What else would it be? The mind, the body?
It's mind down to body. That's top down, or body to mind, which is bottom up. But they're interwoven, right? Mm-hmm. That's somatics, the weaving of the mind and body together. And as humans, you like, it felt like you're maybe, and then many people do tend to separate the mind from the body, which is kind of an old paradigm belief. And now we're owning and recognizing and validating more how valuable the body is.
The realization that the brain is actually, oh my God, inside your body. It's in your skull.
Exactly.
Wait a minute, that's not part of my body. Head's like the thing on the starship, like on Star Trek. It's like the disc that they can take off or put on. So.
Yes. The mind, the head, the brain is part of the body.
Yeah.
Bing, 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 bing.
But what I was going to say is just that for pretty much everybody, there's levels of like, there's work to do there for all of us in our own unique way.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, that is the leading edge of growth. And when everyone talks about healing or doing the work or just this planet making it through whatever the fuck it is we're trying to get through, from my own viewpoint of that happening from the individual outward, from the inside out, I would say the doorway is trauma.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that's probably holding you back from like the next step.
Yeah, one way to put it too is doing your work and having your practice and meditation, mindfulness, etc., yoga, so many things can be your practice, helps to take you from an immature being to a mature being. And you're recognizing as you mature the ways in which you're reacting immaturely, which is typically because of your trauma.
Such as? I was drinking water there.
Such as, for example, in relationship, it happens a lot, right? Like just last night, we were having dinner and we were having a conversation and you said something
allegedly
that hurt my feelings, right? Remember at the end of dinner when you said something and it hurt my feelings and then it triggered in me a feeling of unworthiness.
What
and
was
my
it?
reaction was to shut down because that's my learned pattern from being a child is shutting down. It's either fight, flight, freeze, or fix is one of those patterns that you go into. And I froze, which is shutting down. And you sensed it and you were like, hey, what's going on? And I was even like, nothing, I'm fine. And you're like, no, tell me what's going on. Tell me how you feel. Like, no, I'm fine. And then finally you walked over to me and you
I knew it wasn't fine. So
you put your hand on my shoulder and you're like, hey, just tell me. And I was like, okay, well, when you said that thing, it made me feel bad. And it wasn't that you intentionally were trying to make me feel bad. It hit on my wounds of feelings of unworthiness. It made me feel not valued.
And why is it so difficult for you when I say in that moment, what's going on?
I just explained it. It's because my reactive pattern is to go into
that's protective.
Shut down. So that's my learned pattern. And then when two people are in a couple and we both get into our reactive patterns, that's when things can spiral out. But we can be immature or have an issue when one of us is taking a turn not being that way. And you thankfully didn't then become like the aggressor where you were like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You always get like this, more like fighting, you know?
Or take it personally. Like,
or take
I
it
knew
personally.
It was your own thing I just wasn't quite, I just literally was not quite sure what had taken a left turn.
Yeah, but you could sense it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we were in resonance. And when I shifted and shut down and stopped feeling you because my feelings were hurt, you became aware of that.
It was very subtle. Those things are very subtle. But
sometimes not. Sometimes it's not as subtle. That was a very subtle one.
Yeah, I'm saying sometimes there's no guessing, but you still might not know why.
Right. And so you could have either gotten to your reactive defense pattern, fight, or you could have shut down. I'm getting out of here. Whatever, dinner's done. Or, you know, a variety of things.
I could have thrown my plate against the wall, which was an option.
But instead,
just like, how dare you?
You've done practices.
Be silent.
You've done practices to know your own self and to be able to validate me and comfort me. And then it was over with. It burned out really quickly.
I could have gone on a hunger strike and not told you that until I was emaciated. And then 2 weeks later, you'd be like, what is going on? And I'd say, you know what's going on? That's a really good question. What is going on?
Well, I want to ask you, I want to ask you, do you know what your reactive pattern might be? When you get triggered, what happens for you?
Defensiveness.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you had an original question around that before that I was trying to explain, and I can't quite remember exactly what it was, but I think you were asking how it shows up. Yeah,
but yes. And I think it's great to bring it down to the personal level. I was just speaking collectively, globally, that seems to be the way. It's a good example. So you think about the problems we face in the world, and on some levels, it starts with those interpersonal relationships being, as we said also earlier, the crucible of a lot of the work you're doing. And you might think, oh, the way my partner and I are dealing with this little miscommunication at dinner has nothing to do with the problems in the world, has nothing to do with the intractable issues we have energetically as people building bridges against disparate ideas. And I'm sort of contending that is the birthing place of that connection. Like you have to start at a place of working on those traumas that we're holding because of the way they manifest out into your actions with the closest loved ones and the whole world. And so in essence, circling back, that's why this kind of work and what you're up to, I'm recognizing it's the deep end because it's at the forefront. It's like the spear tip.
Yes.
I think it's always that way, but right now it's very, very true.
Well, the call to arms this past year, incredibly, and it's been a wave that's been building for a while, is for all of us collectively, personally, to turn towards the truth, to turn towards the pain instead of numb out and pretend it doesn't exist and ignore, which we've been doing for generations and generations and millennia and millennia. So we're turning towards the difficult things collectively and in our own lives and in many ways. And when we do that, we are creating the opportunity to digest and integrate whatever those feelings, emotions were, and then stop them.
So what's that look like in this example we're talking about? We were originally starting with like the uncomfortableness of getting on some kind of race back into things. And I say I feel anxiety about that. And you share that in your own way. And so leaning into that, what does that look like? What's the practice of that?
Well, I think the habitual thing that we might do is ignore it. Like ignore that we're feeling anxious and
cover
push
it up.
forward anyways.
Drinking or...
But then it's to like continue to go along that path, right? I'm still going to march along this path, even though my body, my psyche, my soul are telling me no. And instead, the choice point becomes, I'm actually not going to do that, which feels a little scary because my pattern is to plan and I'm letting that go, or I'm bringing things closer in than I'm planning and not going as far out. And that's just not what we're used to.
But how do you tell that when you're listening to the signs, so to speak, that which is sort of an intuitive wisdom and that which is the anxiety itself or the wound itself holding you back from leaning in?
So the question is, how do you distinguish between what's true intuition and what's a wound? Is that what you're asking?
That which serves you and that which is actually serving the wound to not heal.
Well, I think as we've learned again in this past year, space and time slowing down. And so we often tend to rush through things and leap to a choice or leap to a conclusion or react. And so when you're feeling discomfort, anxiety, unsettled, unclear, the medicine would just be to wait and to get back in touch with yourself, presence your body, get back in touch with nature, and not feel like you need to make a decision right away. Just give things time, because I think in time there will be more clarity. When you get clearer, things will become clearer, and when you're feeling unclear, it's unclear, and it will shift if you can wait, slow down, not need to know right now.
Having an attitude of being time rich versus time deprived is important. And the pandemic time, the COVIDian time, was one of presencing but elongated. It's sort of like you couldn't really look much in the future. If you did, it was either fear, but you certainly couldn't make plans.
Right.
And the past was somewhat irrelevant because you're like, well, here we are in this thing. And you had nothing but time in a lot of ways. Nothing but the now.
Some of us.
Yeah. And I can only speak right now from like what you and I kind of went through.
So continuing
it's building
right?
a bridge, though. Here we are, like, moving into whatever this next phase is. And my heart tells me that it's not going to be the story that's told that, oh, we're going to get back to normal. And I'm like, I really feel like we're just on the first wave of a larger. We've been in these waves, and this was a big one. But I feel like there's absolutely more of this, whatever this.
How do you feel when you say that?
I feel like I'm trying to wake someone out of a dream, like wake them up, like shake them, like wake up, you're in a bad dream. Like,
So
or it's sort of like, don't drink that next beer. We have to go. You got to drive in like an hour. It's like, trust me. Like, you need, to marshal
so
your
it
strength.
sounds like caution and rallying.
But I feel an energy too around it. It's like, it's sort of like you're in various battles, and we went through a battle, and we kind of, we didn't die.
The war's
Some
not
people,
won.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like the long haul. It's like, we got more to do together, more work, and I think we're in some ways, as crazy as it sounds, doing good work. It's like, let's keep going, because we can do this. We can do this, but we got a lot to do. And don't think that was it, and now the work's done.
Yeah, you're kind of like a team captain. You're trying to keep all the cats together.
More like a cheerleader, looking for some other cheerleaders. Yeah. Working on some cheers called East Forest songs. I practice super hard in my studio. Got some pom-poms.
You do have the marching band.
Glockenspiel.
Glockenspiel,
Yeah, that's from the University
thank you.
of Nebraska. Got on eBay.
Yes.
Yeah, many years ago.
Yes.
It's very beat up. A lot of football games there.
I would say through East Forest and your work and your music, I witness people looking to you like a lighthouse, like for direction or to help them find their way. They turn towards you in the work that you do and your music.
Well, the lighthouse is an interesting analogy, because I feel okay like manning a lighthouse. You know what I mean? Like, I feel okay. Like, yes, my job is to keep that light on. I don't know. I'm just sort of a signpost on the way to say, like, it's one of the ways you can reference to know your navigation.
Yeah, one safe harbor.
Right. Like, it's not the destination, but it's an important, as there are many important things that help you be like, now I can just remember where I am and where I want to go. So in that way, I could get behind that, because I don't feel that I have the answer I'm not a soothsayer.
No, you're a lighthouse. And in one way, as you know, I think anyways, you help guide people with that light into the light of their own heart and their own soul.
Well, into my heart, then it's going to be into other hearts, because it's one heart.
One heart.
Yeah. So I do feel good, just because the time has changed and it's getting warmer, and in that sense, like, that's very ecstatic for me personally. Just feeling that physical warmth and light. I feel like I feed off the sun, and I don't understand how I grew up in Oregon in the gray and the rain.
Well, that's why you were a sad little boy. It was hard for you.
Very sad
Yeah.
all the time. I think my vitamin D was like 1 level. It's supposed to be in the like 30.
Meanwhile, I was in the ocean.
Yes,
feet in the
Daytona
sand.
Beach. Very different childhood. So I recognize for myself that the sun is something that really feeds me. I'm like a withering plant. I'm one of those plants that needs sun 90% of the day.
Ditto.
And decent water.
And I just need the extra humidity.
Yeah, I could do without that. So, well, what else is going on for you in these shifting times? What are you excited about, or not excited about, or afraid of?
Excited, not excited, or afraid? Well, let's go with excited. Right now, leaning into the hot and humid plans. We're just about to go to Costa Rica together for almost 2 weeks, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, so a little background. It's the first gig I'm playing out of town. I played one show here in Boise during the pandemic through
Duck
Club Presents, a local outdoor thing. And so this is the first like gig. It's still outdoors, but happens to be in Costa Rica, which is great. But it's sort of like, okay, we're going to go international for the first one. And it's a benefit for Justin Wren's Fight for the Forgotten nonprofit. And I'm totally excited to go, and I hope it helps. But it's hard to believe that we're going. You know what I mean?
It's a week from
Like
now.
I was just in the closet over there. We're in the studio looking, I was like, I actually saw some of the gear cases.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. Those. Like, shit, I got to pull that out and like
Remember how to pack.
how this stuff packs up and figure out and the weights of everything. And
I have no fear that you won't figure that out because you're very
those
diligent.
neurons in my brain are very dusty.
Yeah.
And they've been taking a big break. You know, they've been on the beach. And I don't think they're going to want to come back and have to figure out airplane dimensions and weights.
You're going to do great. You're going to do great. It's going to be great. We'll
So
figure it out.
That's something I think we're both excited about
Yeah,
and nervous about. And
Costa Rica's my yoga home. It's where I went to my yoga school, and my yoga teachers are there. And I've been there, I think this is my 6th or 7th time, but I haven't been there since 2015 when I was there for a little over a month. And it feels like a great blessing.
Actually, this fits into, I think, my own edge. So one of the things I've been discovering in the past few months through, I think, my own trauma work from mostly the ketamine therapy. I dove a little bit back into ketamine therapy through your work at the Boise Ketamine Clinic, just a handful of sessions, which I've been finding very helpful for my mood, you know, for me personally. But one of the things that's been coming up like psychospiritually and emotionally is this need to like voice those things that I'm like the part of me that's afraid of certain things or the fear. Because I often put on the face as the lighthouse guy, like, oh, I got this light. Don't you guys worry. And that part of me is very strong. But there also is a part of me that's like the little boy who's like, I don't really know how to work this lighthouse. I mean, I do, but part of me is like, maybe someone smarter should be doing this. Or
So
who really,
self-doubt.
the guy who built this or the lady who built this lighthouse, maybe she should be doing this. Yeah, I'm saying there's that small voice within, and I've been recognizing the value of giving that a place at the table.
Yes.
And to say, that can be voiced, that can be here too, so I don't have to feel like I'm covering it up.
Yes. Perfect. Beautiful. That little boy just wants to be heard and be connected to and felt. And then once it feels safe and seen, then you can give it a little like, it's okay. You don't have to be scared for these reasons. And we're going to keep going.
It feels really important for me. I don't want to let people down. And when you're feeling like a captain of a ship guiding, you know, when you're literally guiding a journey or something, and you're just a facilitator saying, hey guys, for a while this is going on, I'm going to keep my hand on the wheel kind of thing. And that's an honorable job. And in some ways anyone can do that. But it's also, you know, you want to exude a kind of strength because it gives people calm. And I know that, right? And I'm trying to figure out how to also give voice to the part of me at the same time. It's like, and hey, I'm not in control. And that's scary to me. But I also feel like I'm going to step into this. And thank you for your own support and your trust. And I'm doing the best I know how to do.
Voicing that is your authenticity and is your humility. And you're not putting on a show. You're being clear and transparent and vulnerable in your multidimensional, multifaceted self. You're not just strong, warrior, masculine captain. That's part of you. And another part of you doesn't know and gets scared and has doubt. And when you allow that part of you to be known to yourself and to others actually feel safer, I think, and more connected to you because they also have that part that feels the same.
Yes.
So they feel more validated. Like, I'm not alone. Oh, look at this person that I look up to. They too struggle.
But it also is a show.
Which part is the show?
Well, there's always the element of performance in when we speak to another being, especially when you're speaking to groups. Like,
is that true?
Yeah. I think you're just thinking about it pejoratively. Like, I'm saying, like, the performative aspects, like, you're aware that there's this group speak going on. You're aware of a role that you're playing. You are playing a role. It may be the role of the performer. It may be the role of
I think
facilitator.
I feel less identified with that personally. But it could just be deeper in my unconscious, but I actually don't think of it consciously.
Maybe I'm just hyper aware of it from the acting background, where it's like I was so used to this feeling of playing a role while you're consciously aware, essentially, of playing the role.
Yeah, that's your actor training.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting thing to bring up because that's what I also want to give voice to, is to say, like, authenticity is a recognition of the multifaceted masks that you're putting on.
So part of yourself is also actor.
Not actor. I'd say the identities that you can play at once. One of them can be, for instance, when you're doing a performance, you are the performer. You're identifying in that role of an entertainer on some level, depending on what the show is. But you may be also in the role of like guide. Or
I think of guide and teacher as different than performer, entertainer, and I can resonate with what you're saying when I think of myself when I've DJ'd, right? Like when I'm DJ Shakir Khan, that's kind of like a persona, and I want people to be entertained, and so I'm very engaged with how can I make this as entertaining for everybody as possible. That part of it?
I'm saying you hold these masks simultaneously. That's what I'm pointing out. And when you bring a seat to the table for the little boy that has fears too, that doesn't have to overtake the other aspects at the same time.
No.
And that's an interesting thing to acknowledge. It's like they can coexist.
Yes.
And that is the part that I think I'm leaning into more.
And indeed, they always have coexisted. You're just bringing little boy out of the shadow where he's now seen and witnessed and acknowledged. And I feel as if potentially the more that you do that,
I would love
the more he'll actually integrate into you and not necessarily be a separate self.
Yes. I was just thinking if someone dropped into this conversation late and they don't know what we're talking about and all they hear about is this little boy in a closet that we're going to bring out, and we're like, this is really not okay.
No, everybody has their own little wounded child. We all do.
Everyone has a gimpy kid in the closet that they bring out every now and then. No, they don't. That's sick and wrong. No, I mean literally.
Okay.
You're not following my joke here.
I mean, that's where Benji is right now.
I put him in actually, yeah, he just poked his head in there and I was like, get back in the closet. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
I apologize to whoever that might offend.
Yes, go back to the beginning. That's all I have to say. Please don't take it out of context. But that's to just give reference to what we're talking about, kind of like the edges we're at, and about, what is that friction that I'm leaning up against? And I think that's a part of it. It's a recognition that I've made this sort of internal commitment to give that more voice. And now I need to step out and do that in a very fresh, I don't know how that quite will work. I've always done it, but there's more of a commitment for myself about the importance of it and not giving it like it's like a sideshow. It's like, no, I think there's like an avenue to strength in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's maybe like you're saying, it's like that's healing my own traumas, and that's my own part of my own growth process. It's my work.
Well, I think the things that go unacknowledged or ignored, that's we've been doing that for so long. We've been ignoring and not acknowledging our wounds for so long.
Well, on some level,
it's time to stop doing that.
Sure. And you don't know, right? Sometimes.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's like, it's just, you're naive, you're ignorant.
Well, you totally are. But through your practices, you become more self-aware.
Yes.
And you can't forget what you gain as knowledge. You might pretend like you don't know, but you do know. And you have been practicing and you've been maturing. You've been on this journey for a long time. And I think your work with the ketamine has kind of accelerated it in some ways. I mean, you've had some pretty big breakthroughs. I feel like I've witnessed.
Yeah, I think so. We've had two basically rounds of session, one in the summer and one, so about 6 months apart. And I've definitely found them valuable, and in different ways. There's just the level of like how it affects my mood, which I tend to find pretty positive and grounding. But then there's been this other like spiritual element to it of like the actual journeys I take and what comes up and what I face. And that's been sort of like this whole other level of it, that it's like any journey, any psychedelic experience. They bear some pretty unique and woven gifts inside them. So, yeah, I'm grateful for it. Thank you for the process.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, aside from that, is there anything else we want to relay as far as like stories that we're forgetting about that's happened to us, or anecdotal elements of our lives that might be vaguely
you
interesting?
asked me 3 things. You asked me, what am I excited about?
Yeah.
What am I not excited about? Which I haven't gotten
what are you bored
to.
with? Yeah.
Why are you bored? What are you not excited about? Well, like you, I'm very excited about spring and the change of the season. I'm super excited about my garden and the work that we do around the house. And I would say I'm just mindful to not push myself too hard. Mm-hmm. We've been speaking to this, like not getting back into those same patterns, really wanting to maintain a sense of openness, because I feel like when I do, my heart stays more open and I feel better. I mean, my spiritual bhakti practices are my favorite thing ever. And I feel like in this past year, I've gotten more connected with those, even though I've always had a pretty deep connection. It's just gone it's like fracking down into the bhakti.
Fracking.
Heart.
Wow. Fracking bhakti. Amazing.
Going real deep.
Wow. That's a very interesting metaphor.
I'm not excited about Clubhouse. Can I say that?
Sure, we can talk about Clubhouse.
And I don't know why. I just feel resistance towards it.
You hate it. I know.
It's not a hate. It's like a...
I think you feel like it's a thing that you might need to look at and you don't want to. You don't want one more thing to look at.
Well, it's the antithesis of what I was describing a minute ago, of like spaciousness and slowing down and quiet. It feels like noise. It feels like chatter. It feels like lots of static and people blah blahing. And
talking about NFTs and mid-level marketing techniques.
Randomness. I mean, I it takes enough. I recognize I have enough of an addiction to like Instagram, right? And so that's kind of like my one big candy bar Slurpee. And I don't have the energy to give it to something else.
I bet there's some bhakti rooms, like it's every Tuesday night at 7, they just chant kirtan.
Yeah, but
I'm sure.
I don't want to schedule anything else.
Yeah. My problem with Clubhouse is that a lot of it's like something you have to put on the calendar. And that's anything right now, more stuff on the calendar is not what I want.
Exactly.
I think we both feel a good day. The best days are when you wake up and like, oh my God, there's no meetings or calls on this calendar.
Yes.
That's a good day.
I think that's going to be my day tomorrow.
That is freedom right there.
It's wonderful.
That's America.
So Clubhouse feels like a thing to schedule and lots of blah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be a hater just to hate. I don't, it's just my intuitive sense is a resistance.
There used to be this website way back, where you just hit a button and it would randomly like go to someone's webcam and this.
Oh my God.
No, I mean like other people who are on the platform.
Okay.
So you just be bouncing around to rando person, and the idea was like you just meet people, and so you just hit the button, and there's some person just sitting there like, hey, what's up? Yeah, what you doing? And I mean, it quickly went south because you can imagine what happened.
Yeah, lots of masturbation.
Well, I wouldn't say lots, but it doesn't take many to ruin it, you know? And that's like in New York City, I think it was New York City, they put these internet like phone booth things where you could get internet. It was just like it was like a phone booth, but it was internet. Okay. And the idea was like, now we can sort of democratize the internet and anyone can come up and use the internet who can't afford it. Well, it quickly turned into people using it to watch porn. And it got a little out of hand. and there's like groups of people
No pun
watching.
intended.
They couldn't stop watching it, and there's groups of people, and they had to turn it all off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just too intense. It's like, it's too free.
So I guess Clubhouse's version of that would be like women reading a romance novel or something. A romance
That'd
novel
be
that you make
amazing
up
if
as
they
you
have
go.
like a literotica softcore room. I don't know. I don't know if they have a code of conduct, like of there's sort of like a moral code. I have no clue. I haven't really dug into it too much. The few times I've dropped in, it's strange because I'm quite drawn to audio, and I love the idea of it's just audio. There's no video, and it's actually higher quality audio. Generally speaking, I think that's great. I like the ephemeralness of it. I just haven't found my doorway in, and I don't like the idea that it's like a scheduled thing. That's hard for me right now in my life. But and I like the idea of meeting people in theory. You know, for other people, I like that idea. For me right now, I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed with so many things that I got a full plate.
Yes.
And I'm cultivating my own friends that I have.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point of one thing I've been excited about recently is I feel a return in 2021 to old friends, like my old friends from high school, things like that. Like I had my 25-year reunion of Java Lava, which was the coffee shop in Daytona that we would hang out in
The Peach Pit,
1996.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, like our version of the Peach Pit. And finding a wellspring of nourishment and comfort from the few old friends that I have and old ones that have been on the periphery that I've reconnected to. There's just something so good about it. Maybe because my immediate friends here, like in Boise, I haven't had those connections. And so turning the time back further, I don't know. I don't know exactly what makes it feel so good, but I'm very grateful.
They've witnessed you. That's an incredible gift. The more time that passes, the more you're still friends, the more valuable it gets. It's like an old wine. Like they've witnessed your process in life, and there's fewer and fewer people as time goes on that knew you in those moments back then, and that's really valuable because they can witness the growth in you.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's a real being besides yourself who can say like, I knew you when, and now I know you now, and I'm seeing the thing, and I see the other thing, and can hold you accountable at best.
So that's been beautiful, and I look forward to doing more of that. I was senior class president of Mainland High School, 1997.
Oh, well, there you go, la-di-da.
Supposed to have done our reunions, and I honestly haven't, which is a role of the senior class president to do the high school reunions. I know, shake your head at me.
Why did they elect you? Yeah. They should have thought 25 years later.
She's going to be in Idaho.
Yeah.
She won't even be around.
You should have stayed in Daytona just for that. Just for your commitment.
But I'm committing now. I will get that together for you guys.
Seriously.
We'll do a 25-year reunion, which will be in 23, right?
Okay.
I think I just got my math real quick right.
Nobody knows or care.
No, 22.
Okay.
So.
I'll take your word for that. Good.
Yes.
So, so friendships, old friendships, I hear that. Well, that's good. Was there anything you wanted to point my way or bring to the attention of
our dear listeners?
Yeah. Or any is this like your opportunity to like put me on the spot and say, you really could do a lot better?
I would never say that.
Well, if it's true.
I think that you're doing
there's many
quite
things
good.
I could do a lot better.
I mean,
marginally better.
Do you really want me to answer that question on air? I would say that we've spent this, we were always very close as a couple, and we've spent this whole last year even more deeply interwoven, and you've grown in many ways as one, like a stepdad, right? Stepdad has stepped way up.
Stepdad's hard.
It is hard for you.
Very hard. It was not my plan.
Your life plan did not include it.
It did not, no. And then I was forced into it by Eros.
Well, in one way, fortunately, I already had children, because if I didn't have children when we met, I would have forced a baby out of you.
excuse me?
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
No, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen now.
Oh, I thought
To
you
your
meant like
favor.
okay, literally. Yeah, I don't know. It's always been a hard thing for me because I go back and forth for all these. I overthink big decisions.
Yes, you
and
do.
that's to me probably the biggest. And so I'm basically still thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for 20 years. I'm still thinking about it.
You're still thinking about having a baby.
Yeah, I honestly am. That's the honest answer. I still wrestle with the pros and cons, and
So we might have a baby?
I would say that's highly unlikely. But I'm just letting you know I still think about it. I don't consider it like a closed case where I'm like I know. I honestly I don't know. I see the advantages and the disadvantages, but I do feel that my cuppeth is fulleth being a part-time stepdad. And I recognize I don't feel I'm lacking in a certain experience other than like this idea of like some kind of biological aspect, which I think is frankly selfish in my own like self-aggrandizing, like, you know,
A
progeny
mini-me?
bullshit. Yeah.
A little baby forest?
Yeah, but this is it though. That's just like there's a romance to your voice, and I feel like I don't think that's real because I'm in the trenches with you, and I'm like, it's not that romantic.
I disagree. My children are wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're rose-colored glasses. It's like
Well, that's what happens when you become a parent. You would
Wait,
also
so
get
everyone
you would
thinks-
also get a pair of rose-colored glasses.
I don't know if that's good. Like I feel like I don't know if I want to be that guy who just can't see, you know, the full picture.
You know, I think being a parent, a biological parent, could be incredibly good for you. And I also don't feel as if you need it. And I kind of feel like it's not going to happen for you.
Oh, well.
Like, I feel like
I don't know.
I feel like I heard you just say that you're still thinking about it. I don't witness that.
You're right. It's an internal process, but I do try it on for size in my heart and in my mind a lot.
Oh,
But like I said, I have your kids in my life, and so it's maybe not as like an existential of a question because it's just right here, like we're doing things, we're in it, you know, like.
yeah.
Benji just poked his head in here to try to interrupt us. We're doing this, and he's like pointing at me and waving, and I, you know, it's like.
Well, all of us, when you have a step family, it takes time to
It's a long
get
game,
like a
yeah.
cohesive
Yeah.
gel together. And I feel like this past year, because of all of the homeschool too, you know, the kids didn't even go away.
Yeah, it was
they
intense.
were here all of the
That was
time.
intense. I mean,
They were here and we were here all of the time.
yeah, and I think for a lot of families that was just unbearable. And for us, it was intense. To be honest, it was not easy for everybody. For all the other reasons, it's not even like, oh, we're home, but you know, you're gonna go whatever to this camp every day. It's not even that. Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And then everyone's sitting on screens all day, which is not great for anybody. And then there's just the stress of like, are we going to die? Like, you know, like.
For you, it was the stress of, are the kids going to kill me?
Yeah.
Will the kids give me
teenager,
COVID?
Yes.
I will get COVID because of the children.
Which was the biggest, by far, vector of danger for me. And it is uncontrollable. And that's why it pretty much drove me mad for a while until I just realized, you know, there are things you can control and the things you can't. It was kind of like there's radiation coming from like, you know, this nuclear reactor a few miles away. It's like, I can't control that. So my life is getting shorter. So I just had to accept that this is. And I'm still in that place. But
well, I was going to say
I feel that was back in the summer when I kind of turned that corner.
Because of it's been kind of like fertilizer for family cohesion. And I feel like we've graduated a few levels. And at least in the recent past, things have felt more solid, good, aligned, less struggle. Mm-hmm. And you may not agree with me, but I've been feeling that.
Yeah.
And you and Benji kind of have been like the two thorns together. You in your relationship with Maya, who's 17, has typically been really good, besides the fact that you think she's going to give you COVID. With Benji,
I think she did. It's probably what happened, and I just didn't know. I was lucky.
No one had symptoms at all. But you and Benji,
That's not totally true.
He's the 9-year-old, and you two battle in a different way.
Yeah, because we're battling for mom's attention.
Yes.
And he's a mama's boy. And I don't know if I mentioned this before on the podcast, but he'll probably be embarrassed when he hears this. He'll never hear this in a few years.
What are you going to say?
Well, he forgets to flush the toilet. And he leaves these, like gargantuan size.
Forearm size. They're like 12 inches.
It looks like an old, it looks like a large man who ate.
This is why they're sometimes called logs.
Anyway, he doesn't flush. And I suddenly had that realization the other day that this is an unconscious Freudian technique to make me look at his feces. It's some 6-degree level chess game going on about you think you have power over me. Funny that you have, continually had to look at my shit over and over again. I keep forgetting to flush.
It seemed like that only started maybe a few months ago, too.
Exactly. It wasn't like his whole life. It just started, and it's still going on. And he doesn't say much about it. He just, oh, yeah. So he goes and takes care of it. I tell him, you left the deposit at the bank, not fully deposited.
He's like, okay. There's no argument. He doesn't deny it. He's just like, yeah.
No, but it hit me that I was like, oh, this is this is it. This is part of the game. And so now I'm like, how do I have to up level,
Or would you? I mean, do you have to react in that way?
Well, I try to be chivalrous and just take it, but also then I'm literally just taking these visions of I have a collection of JPEGs in my head of different bombs in the toilet that it's no one wants to see this. No one does. And as a man in his 40s who did not have children, I was not aware that such a little being could do this sort of mess. I was not aware that this is possible, that this is a potentiality for people.
Well, you're learning. Look at you learning.
And if anything, that feels like the cosmic joke, because this is the way I'm learning. It's why a 9-year-old's dookies. And so be it. And also there it is.
So yes. Yeah, on the surface level, I guess I could say it seems like the two of you are getting along better, but he is leaving his shit in the toilet for you.
Yeah. But there's growth happening, and it is a long game, and I've noticed that, and I've always known that, and I'm sort of seeing the evidence of it and the fruits of it after several years of how it grows. And I recognize, they didn't ask for this situation, and they didn't have a choice really for me to be in their lives, and a choice for them to be in different households, week to week. And even though they have it kind of as good as it could be, nonetheless, that was sort of, this trauma that happened to them. And so how they heal that trauma is, it's sort of inevitable trauma to that.
Yes. And I feel as if it is being healed. I feel like they are feeling more and more settled and more connected. And, I'm fortunate that my ex-partner, Bill, he's an amazing father, and we have a good relationship, and he's in a stable relationship. And so that all lends itself to stability, safety, love, trust, growth.
Yeah. And you and I have different sort of mindsets, or I don't know what, theories on parenting. Backgrounds, certainly very different backgrounds on how we grew up.
Yes.
And so we're coming from pretty different perspectives. And that's also weird for me to recognize that I'm not a full player in the management system. I'm like a vice president. I don't
You're an associate manager.
Oh, Christ. Seriously? regional,
Who's power
regional
hungry?
manager.
Power
Yeah.
hungry.
All right. Well, I'm hustling. I'm eager to work my way up the ladder.
Have your own baby and things will change.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a great solution. That's a great idea.
Then we can decide together how it's done.
Well, if anything, I realized like, oh, we're coming from different places. So it's like we would have to, would we get on the same page, or would it just be like mom's
I
one
feel
way?
like if we had a child together, if you had your own child, you would quickly realize that your idealized way of how you parent with such like,
I would say it's the nanny's idea.
Exactly.
It's her problem.
Nannies would be it. Or because you would realize like, oh, I can't be such an enforcer all of the time. It feels actually good and more balanced to be a softie.
I don't feel that I want or am an enforcer all the time. I just feel I'm maybe filling a vacuum. Like it's more like I want it to be more like, oh, we split all this stuff 50-50. So it's like we're team parents.
You don't feel that way.
Well, I of course I do. I think my work is just kind of calming down and passing the buck to you. Because sometimes it's much better, I think, for it to come from you. Because you are their mother.
Totally.
And I recognize that more now. It's like, look, I know we may have a house rule about X, Y, Z, and I could be the one to mention that right now, but it still might be better if it comes from you. Mm-hmm. And I keep my mouth shut.
Puts added stress on Radha.
It's just,
Yeah.
I was stepping up more, but I thought like, I don't think that's helping so much.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But in general,
you're doing a great job. You are.
Things feel good. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Things feel good. And you have come a long way. And for you too, it's not something that you asked for in your life, but you stepped up to the plate. And you're very giving and very loving and very present. And you care. I mean, that's why you have like the rules and ways of being and expectations. It's because you care. If you didn't care.
Yeah, like I don't want someone to not be on an iPad all day. Not because I'm like, it's a power thing. I'm like, no, I really feel like you're better off if you don't. Like, I want you to your brain to be good. I want you to grow up happy. I don't want you to be messed up. I'm messed up. I don't want you being messed up. Like, so I feel responsibility.
You do.
Yeah.
And you take that seriously.
Responsibility. Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this conversation with Radha and myself, just head over to Patreon in the second tier. If you join, that's where you'll get benefits like getting the exclusive podcast content, including other bonus solo casts that I do, and additional material such as this of the Radha Krishna Roundtable. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening, for subscribing. Thanks for the reviews. If you haven't done that on Apple Podcasts, thanks for everyone who's joined us on the East Forest Council on Patreon, patreon.com/eastforest. And thanks for those who are pledging support for these tour dates coming up. We're doing our best to put that together, even though we're in such this strange liminal space where it's still difficult to understand what we can do and where, but we're trying. We're doing our best to put one foot in front of the other. As I wish for you, this song you're hearing in the background is called Run, and it's from my very first album, The Education of the Individual Soul, which is a gift to download if you like, for those who still download music on my website. But no need to run, friends. We can just walk, because we can run, but we can't hide. We can't hide from love. So keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit. But if you do it with grace.